I had a one-on-one with Professor Bolaji Akinterinwa, the former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs on some very, very pressing issues of national interest. I'll leave you with that interview as we get to round off on the show tonight. Stay with us. Yeah, so on this issue of secession, asylum, and referendum, the UK government, according to reports, has offered persecuted members asylum. Help us understand what exactly is under that term, asylum. What is the UK government offering?
If you talk about asylum, you are talking about many things. You are talking, first of all, about the right of an individual to apply for asylum. Okay? Citizens do have rights in international relations, especially within the framework of international human rights. You are also talking about the right of countries to which you are applying for asylum. Since we are talking about this Masob IPOB, now they have the right of complaint to the government of Nigeria, and since they believe that they are not getting fair hearing, they are not getting satisfaction, in the belief that they are marginalized, they are being persecuted, they decided now to seek alternative solutions to their problem by seeking to go elsewhere. So now going elsewhere, we now move to the level of the right of the United Kingdom, which has the sovereign right to determine whether or not to consider, not to even talk about approving the request. So at the level of the applicant for asylum and the level of the host country of the asylee, we also have another level. That's the level of international law. We have, for instance, the 1951, I think April 1951 Geneva Convention, which defines who is a refugee. When you look at the laws of many countries, particularly the United Kingdom, it insists, the law insists that you must first of all apply, all right, for the status of an asylee. You must apply for asylum before you can live in the United Kingdom as a refugee. So who talks about asylum is necessarily talking about a refugee. So refugee, asylum constitute two sides of the same coin. In fact, the issue is that when you apply for the status of an asylee, you must have one of the 5 reasons given to qualify to be eligible for consideration. You must have the fear of persecution arising from your belief, from your religious belief, or from political persecution, fear of being persecuted. If, as a result of your belonging to a particular stratum of society, and then you exercise fears, then you are eligible to apply. If you are being pursued by your government on the basis of criminality, you are not eligible. You are not eligible to be considered for asylum. You should go back to your country and face the music. That is precisely what asylum is all about. So you are entitled to it, but it's not automatic. And if for whatever reason you cannot get justice, fairness, equity in your system, please, you have the right to do whatever.
I was going to ask if you think IPOB deserves this. Do you think they are being persecuted? Do you think they are being marginalized as they have claimed? That's one part of the question. And the second part is, what are your reservations about this asylum as offered by the UK? Because a lot of Nigerians are celebrating it already and making it look like, well, it does appear that their Messiah have arrived. Do you have any reservations about this?
Are they eligible? Yes, they do. You see, in international law and relations, there is the principle of self-determination. I, as an individual, do not believe that I can be coerced into joining an association. It's always freedom of choice to belong to or not to belong to. If you look at the meaning of Nigeria's policy of non-alignment, you will see that all these Tafawa Balewas, Obafemi Awolowo's, Nnamdi Azikiwe's, Ahmadu Bello's, these are better people than all the people who are parading themselves as leaders. The meaning of a non-alignment is not that Nigeria cannot align with. When they say non-alignment, it doesn't mean non-alignment. It doesn't mean you cannot align. You can align. But the meaning given to it by the Jajawashukus and the Tafawa Balewas was that it simply meant the freedom to decide whether or not to align with the West or with the East. Freedom, in other words, it is not an automatic association. It's not an automatic, a systematic giving support to either of the Cold War superpowers. So it's exactly the same thing when you are talking about national unity. You cannot coerce people to belong to. You belong to an association if your personal or community interests are believed, are seen, all right, to be protected. But the moment you can see now that, look, whether you are a majority or minority, there is no consideration for the protection of your own interests, then what happens? You have the right. Self-determination has its origin in the colonial days, that all dependent territories, countries, have the right to define their future. After emancipation, after independence, the concept still remains valid. Okay? No country wants dismemberment of its constituents, certainly. But the issue is that, if you ask me, is there any justification for the IPOB? I will tell you that Nigeria got independence on October 1, 1960. In 1962, the idea of dismemberment, all right, of secession, came into being. just in 1962. So when people talk about the civil wars from 1967, you only need to go back to 1962, and then you can now see already what transpired. Even you can see the Western region crisis in 1963. You can see how Nnamdi Azikiwe asked Emeka Ojukwu to leave his company where he was working. I think it's a UAC or whatever, one British company, to go and join the military. It was Nnamdi Azikiwe who asked Ojukwu to leave that one. I give you this example to let you know that when we are talking about self-determination, in this case, please, they do have the right. They've been complaining about marginalization, okay? The South-South, the Niger Delta men, look at this particular case. Just earlier in the week, we talked about attacks in Gaydam in Yobe State. All right? Look at that type of situation. Look at Zamfara. In Zamfara, they are mining gold. And they created a tarmac in a forest, no access route. The tarmac was not tarred. It's just main road. And the aircraft is said to belong to the British. It is British registered. Now, the law in Nigeria, we are made to believe, is that this house belongs to you. What is underneath the land belongs to government. But the government of Zamfara has been exploiting that. People have been exploiting. The government of Zamfara made it clear to Nigerians that they are mining and selling to Central Bank of Nigeria. They didn't tell us that there is an aircraft that's taking all these, fly them abroad, outside of Nigeria to Niger, from where they will now resend the package and sell so. But this same government of Buhari, all right, who has kept quiet about the mining in Zamfara, all right, has openly opposed the agitation for resource control in the Niger Delta. So if Zamfara can have control over the resources they are saying is theirs, so why will, for instance, the people in the Niger Delta not have the same right? That is double standard. So if the people there now say, look, they want to escape, they want to carve out the Biafra Republic, all right, for themselves, tell me why you will not see that one as just.
So there are calls for a referendum. I mean, according to reports, it's even rumored that I think June 15, but I don't know how true. Do you think a referendum is close? Would that solve our problems?
Look, referendum is the best approach to it. In 1961, when Anglophone Cameroon was split into two, North and South, they were supposed to vote to determine whether they wanted to be part and parcel of Nigeria or part and parcel of Cameroon. The northern part decided to join Nigeria. It became Sardauna province. It's on the basis of plebiscite, referendum. The southern part opted to join the Republic of Cameroon. They go with the Francophone Cameroon. In this case, we are having exactly the same thing with IPOB. When you have a plebiscite, you are asking the people, majority, do you want to remain part and parcel of Nigeria? Do you want to be part and parcel of an independent Republic of Biafra? Rule of majority. It's not just IPOB. Yoruba Southwest has petitioned, has requested the UN to approve of the same plebiscite. All right? To approve of the same plebiscite. So in this case, it's an inquiry. If the United Nations can discover that majority of the people, not as a result of imposition, that they really want to be themselves. Afterwards, opinion is divided in Igbo land. Some are saying, no, they don't want that one. Let there be fairness. Let, for instance, a president of Igbo origin, all right, be elected as a president. And then they will feel a sense of belonging.
Do you think the Nigerian government under President Muhammadu Buhari would allow that?
Well, you see, when there is the purpose of the United Nations Security Council, the cardinal objective is to maintain international peace and security. Where, for instance, Buhari will not accept that, it can compel the international community. That is what we even call the principle of international responsibility to protect. It is very possible Buhari wouldn't like any secession. No. His mandate as president is to maintain territorial integrity. But the issue is that the oath to which he swore as president, he is not complied with them. Does he comply with the principle of federal character? Has he not been accused of nepotism? Does he listen to that? Has he not told us that he gives priority to national security interests to the detriment of rule of law? Is it not the rule of law shall be and should be the priority? Even if you are seeking to protect and ensure security, it must be within the framework of rule of law. Has he been respecting that? Okay. So in this case, how do you explain the fact that the DSS recruited more than 700 people, and they are now saying more than 500 people also are from the north? When they are accusing, what explanation has he given? So please, you cannot preach the sermon of do what I say, not what I do. No, the president should provide leadership by example. What is he doing?
Because we're absolutely pressed for time, I understand you also have a meeting and on. Just one final question or two, if you may. The foreign policy under the present administration, what are your thoughts about it? And then there have been calls for Pantami to resign. Just two questions. Secondly, very briefly.
Yes, foreign policy under the President Muhammadu Buhari is not a big deal. We don't have any foreign policy focus. At best, we have been very reactive. There was a foreign policy review earlier in the week in Abuja in the presidency. But what are they reviewing? Can you review a policy focus that does not exist? What are the foreign policy objectives we are talking about? We are supposed, Nigeria is supposed to have a grand strategy and therefore a foreign policy grand strategy. But we do not have. So what the minister believes he is doing by saying they are pushing people into various international organizations, how do you explain, what is the objective you are pursuing by doing that one? For instance, when Nigeria used to have policy, please, in the early 60s, first of all, to those of you who might have been born, the passport of Nigeria, inner cover, it is clearly stated that the holder of this passport must fight apartheid tooth and nail with whatever means available to you. So if you have to kill an apartheid proponent, it was lawful. The policy was no compromise with apartheid. By that time, Article 2, Paragraph 7 of UN Charter provides for non-intervention in the domestic affairs of other countries. Jajawachuku came to say, no, we will not comply with this provision, that apartheid cannot be considered a domestic affair of any country, that we will intervene, that we will fight, apartheid. That was policy. Okay, that was policy. Non-alignment was policy. During the time of the Akinyemis, they came up with the Akinyemi doctrine on consultation. That was policy. When Professor Gambari, the current chief of staff, came, he came up with the foreign policy concentric circles, which Ambassador Oluyemi Adeniji also redefined as beneficial and constructive concentrism. Those are the time you have ministers who think. All right? We don't have anything. So when they say they are reviewing, our society, civil society organizations adequately represented? Are foreign policy research institutions adequately represented there? Please let me tell you, Patami does not have any local standing to be minister. On the basis of the fact that he knew quite well that he had sympathy for terrorism. There is the error of terror, and there is also the terror of error. You see, the terror of error is this: when you are using terrorism as an instrument to engineer, to evolve, to promote error in political governance, it can only lead to destruction of life and property. Now, he saw Osama bin Laden as a hero. And he's now trying to say that by that time he was young. Okay? Probably for purposes of useful exuberance. We can admit that by that time he was not in his full common sense. But I ask you the question today that reportedly Patami has a social media platform that only operates only in Arabic language. Only in Arabic language. And it is only through this particular Arabic social platform that he has been disseminating government news, information. How do you explain that? Why do you have that? That is an expression of what we call continuity in change, as distinct from change and continuity. You see, the terrorism is flowing in his blood veins. He's only changing tactics in explanation. And when Olusegun Obasanjo told the people of Nigeria that there is a Fulanization agenda, everybody has kept quiet. But all that we are seeing today is a Fulani herdsman, is Fulani kidnapper, is Fulani this, Fulani that. And when people are now arguing, they will now say, don't blame all the Fulani. Who is blaming the Fulani? The only thing is just that whoever is caught, every time he has always been Fulani. And that's why people talk about the Fulani that is caught. So the issue is that, look, please, President Muhammadu Buhari, as a chief of staff, he has always been supporting people that have been publicly accused. People complain about why do you have to have this type of service chiefs? Remove them because they cannot get solution done in the battlefield. Did the president accept? By the time he was compelled to acquiesce to public something, we now have new people. He named them, nominated them for ambassadorial posts. Now the successors are now saying, well, we didn't meet anything. The money meant for fighting Boko Haram, they need to bring the service chiefs back. So please, I am not a politician. I am a scholar. I research on the basis of what I have read, that I have seen. If the service chiefs are now being called back or are asked to come on account for money given to them, the national security advisor saying money is missing. They will say money is missing in the morning. In the afternoon, it's no longer missing. And then they will be panel beating the arguments and so on and so forth. Please, in this case, why is it that the president is always supporting people who have been accused of sharp, corrupt practices? We know of a case whereby, for instance, you sacked a chief executive of an organization for stealing money, for public embezzlement, for reckless, for abuse of whatever. And when he's going, you do a letter and give him, thanking him for a well done, a job well done. Why then sack him if he has done a good job? So please, all these contradictions cannot make any meaningful, any patriotic Nigeria. I, for instance, I am only being compelled to condone, to accept an Oduduwa Republic. Oduduwa Republic, the people of Southwest cannot make progress with all these conflicting systems. Why, for instance, will people believe that you can live in any part of Nigeria, but you are not prepared to live in accordance with the regulations, the law of the place? Why should you be lawless? You can move around, you can settle in any place, but when you settle there, there are laws there, there are regulations there. Okay? So you for instance, you say you are nursing, you are herding all these cows. Fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Must you carry AK-47, AK-49? Must you? And the police stations, DPO, when you complain about being attacked here and there, the moment they discover it is a Fulani person accused, they quickly, smartly say, look, they are not interested, and they will release. And this gives the impression that truly there is a Fulanization agenda. I, as an individual, I have a personal relationship with a Fulani when I was in France, who was critically useful for me. So even if people are fighting Fulani now, I have some Fulani that I must ensure that I protect their interests because they are not bad.
All right, Prof, it's such a delight to speak with you. I would like to thank you most kindly for your views and insights.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.